Are you a user of the Brave browser who's curious about its powerful ad and tracker blocking features, but never got around to learning what it's all about? Or perhaps you're currently using an ad blocker like uBlock Origin or uBlock Origin Lite and want to explore how Brave stacks up against your existing solution. This video has got you covered. We'll be doing a deep dive into Brave Shields. It's the very heart of how the Brave browser blocks ads, trackers, and other undesirable stuff that degrades or harms the web surfing experiences of so many people. This very powerful and built-in feature sports a deceptively simple and user-friendly interface, so it appeals to non-technical everyday users. Yet at the same time, it offers plenty of customization options for privacy enthusiasts as well. We'll walk ourselves through what Brave Shields is, how its interface works, all the way to the overwhelming customization options most people aren't even aware of. So let's get started. So what is Brave Shields? Well, it's the ad blocking feature that's built right into the Brave browser itself. It combines what is normally separate in other browsers into a simple interface with plenty of customization options. So if you're coming from Firefox or other browsers, it's similar to what the tracking protection in those address bars provide. And if you're already familiar with other ad blocking browser extensions like uBlock Origin, it has a similar panel-based interface as well. The beauty of Shields is that there's nothing to install, and it's on by default, so users automatically enjoy the benefits from its great ad blocking capabilities without even having to be aware of it. All you have to do is look at the statistics when you open a new tab in Brave. If you don't see them, click on the Customize button to turn it on. Or hover over it to turn it off. The number of ads and trackers Shields has blocked, and even better, how much time and bandwidth you can save, really drives home the point that Brave Shields can make a great difference to your life. For me, it's both a satisfying and sobering feeling when I look at those numbers, and that feeling grows stronger every time I look at them. Now it's time to see it in action. If you navigate to any site in Brave, you can see a Shields icon in the address bar. If it's orange in color, Shields is enabled and working on that site. The number indicates the ads and trackers blocked on a specific page of the domain. If it's grayed out, Shields is disabled and not working. Simple. Click on the icon and you'll see Shields panel. Click on Advanced Control to reveal more customization options. This panel shows how Shields interact with this particular site. We're going to go through everything in this panel so that you get a good idea of what Shields is doing and how you can customize your experience. This way, you'll also make it much easier to configure the extension settings later. There's something I need to stress here. All customizations that you do here via the panel only applies to this site and not to other sites. We will cover how you can set default values that appear in this panel much later in Brave's settings. For now, let's concentrate on the panel. The domain name of the current page you're on occupies the first line on the panel. The block count represents the total number of page elements that Brave has blocked on the current page. It resets every time you revisit or reload the site. Clicking the Learn More link will bring you to another page where Brave talks about its privacy stand. Now this part is interesting. You can enable or disable Shields on the current site by just toggling the button on or off. Brave calls it Shields up or Shields down. Notice that the page reloads every time you toggle Shields state, and Shields icon changes color accordingly as well. This is a very convenient way to check if the problems you encounter on a site is because Shields is overblocking too many things. For example, if a page won't load fully or cannot be displayed properly. If you are sure Shields is the problem on a site, you can click the Report Site button to let Brave's developers look into it. But before doing so, always do a web search for a solution to your problems first. This shows you respect their time and allows them to focus on other more urgent issues. Now I feel a word of caution is in order here. If you leave Shields down, Brave will remember your preference, and the next time you visit the same site, Shields will stay disabled and not block anything at all. So you should only leave it as Shields down if you are on a site you absolutely trust or need to work with. If not, all sorts of cookies and trackers will be added to your browser. For example, if you are using a hosted service like Google Workspaces or Microsoft 365 and prefer to not block anything for those sites. Or you may want to do this because you are working on your own business site and want to see what it's like without any blocking. Personally, I almost never set any site to shields down. No doubt it's a very convenient feature for the majority of people on the web who are unfamiliar with ad and tracker blocking, and makes verifying whether shields is the cause of a problem much quicker, hence greatly reducing the support workload for Brave developers. However, if you're watching this video, then the advanced control section may be more helpful and less intrusive to your privacy. These 6 settings in the advanced control section are what Shields refers to as protections. They block several different types of online elements, from tracking software to phishing and malware attacks. The first one we're looking at controls how strict you want to deal with ads and trackers on this site. Unlike some other ad blockers, Brave does not differentiate between ads and trackers. It just groups them together for easier control. The reason is because most ads don't just show you products and services. They also try to spy on you, collecting data about what you're doing online. The number here shows how many ads and trackers have been blocked on the current page you are seeing. The number changes because many sites load those ads and trackers dynamically as you scroll through a web page. Click on it to see a list of things Brave has blocked. Now let's go back to the available options to block ads and trackers. The default option blocks most ads and trackers while keeping websites working smoothly. The aggressive option is for more privacy-focused individuals. However, it can break some sites because it's so strict. The last option here is like turning off your bodyguard. You'll be subjected to all sorts of ads and trackers the site has to offer. Never choose this option unless you know exactly what you're trying to achieve. The next setting we are looking at deals with how your browser connects to the site. Nowadays, HTTPS is supported by most sites as it encrypts the data sent between your browser and the website. It's better for security and privacy, unlike the old HTTP protocol, and it's the reason why all banks and financial institutions use it. That said, some sites do exist that still use the older HTTP protocol for one reason or another, so Shields offers this option to let you decide how you want to control your experience. The default option tells Brave to automatically try to connect using the secure HTTPS version of the site. If the site doesn't support HTTPS, Brave will fall back to the less secure HTTP, but only as a last resort. This means you're always getting the safest connection possible. Sometimes you might have no choice but to use a site that doesn't work properly with HTTPS. In that case, choose the Don't Upgrade to HTTP connection option. Just make sure you never send any passwords or sensitive information to those sites. For privacy-focused individuals, the only connect with HTTPS option should be your go-to choice. If you try to visit a site that doesn't support HTTPS, Brave will stop you and show you a warning. You can then decide whether to go back or proceed at your own risk. It's overkill for most people who won't even understand what the warning page is trying to say. However, it's my preferred choice, and I'll show you how to make that the default value later if you would like to do that too. Let's move on to the next setting. JavaScript powers almost all modern websites you visit nowadays. It's what helps create dynamic features like animations, interactive forms, and real-time updates. Without JavaScript, many sites wouldn't work properly or look as good as they do. That's why Brave allows JavaScript by default. If you choose to block JavaScript for a site, be prepared that the site will not load properly, just as what we see here. Additionally, you will see a script block count as well. Clicking on that will reveal the JavaScript files that were blocked. Scripts are grouped according to the domain they are hosted on. Click Allow to unblock individual sites, and if there are lots of scripts on the page and you only want to block a few scripts, you can save time by clicking Allow All, then blocking those few scripts. As you can see, you need to really know what you are doing before you choose the Block Scripts option, so I'll advise you against it in most cases. Fingerprinting is a sneaky way websites try to identify you based on your device and browser settings, even if you are not using cookies. By default, Shields makes it harder for websites to collect these unique details about you with the block fingerprinting option set to on. What this does is Brave will randomize small bits of information that your browser shares with those sites, just enough to confuse trackers without affecting how those sites look or work for you. Now if you click the arrow, you'll see the details the site is trying to gather about your browser and device. You can click any button to turn a particular identifying information on or off. This can be useful if you want to experiment with what's causing a site to break. Now, not all websites use fingerprinting for bad reasons. Some sites, like online games, maps, or tools for editing videos or audio, rely on some of these features to work properly. If Brave's fingerprinting protection is on, these sites might not function as expected. In those cases, you can turn off block fingerprinting if you trust the website you are on. For those who don't know, cookies are like tiny notes that sites leave in your browser. They help sites remember things like your login information, preferences, and even what you have added to your shopping cart. There are two main types of cookies: first-party cookies and third-party cookies. First-party cookies are created by the site you're visiting. They're usually necessary for logging you into the site and keeping you stay logged in while you browse the site. Third-party cookies, on the other hand, come from other sites which are often advertisers and can track your activity across different websites. Block third-party cookies is Shield's default option here, so that you can log into and use sites normally, yet protect your privacy at the same time. The block all cookies option will block all cookies, regardless whether they are first or third party. There's a risk that the site you're on might not work properly, so test it out thoroughly if you intend to use this as the option for the site you're browsing. The allow all cookies option will allow first and third party cookies to be created in your browser. You shouldn't need to use this option in almost all cases. If you frequently log into sites like your email or social media, you might want to keep this setting off, or else you have to log in every time you visit, which can be a hassle. However, it can come in really handy if you are doing your personal banking or online shopping, and would prefer that those sites not keep track of what you just did. It really saves a lot of time compared to having to dig through a lot of Brave's other settings or to use a private window just to accomplish this simple task. Now, when you set it to on, Brave will automatically delete any data such as cookies and web cache that are related to that site after you close the last remaining tab or window of the set. Just be aware that it takes around 30 seconds or more for Brave to clear out the data completely. Currently, there's no way to figure out which sites you have set it to on, so you may want to limit the sites where you do this. Shields determines which sites to block stuff based on a list of filters. You can access that list and make customizations to it by clicking the filters list link. We'll cover that later as it's a big topic. Clicking on the global defaults link will bring us to a Brave settings page, where we can set the default values that appear in this panel. We will also cover that later because it's time to show a Shields feature that isn't shown in the panel. There are times when you just want to hide certain parts of a web page. For that, you can use the block elements feature. But first, make sure Shields is up on your page or else this feature won't work. Then, right-click on your mouse for a context menu. Click Block Elements and a small pop-up will appear. Next, click on any part of a page you want to remove an element from. The Manage Filters link leads to the same page as the one you saw on the Shields panel earlier. If you click on it, you can see where all the custom filters you created were saved to. We'll come back to this setting later in this video. The Show Rules link lets you see how Brave determines the element should be blocked. Adjusting the bar allows further fine-tuning of the blocking rule. Don't worry about the complicated stuff you see here. It's meant for people who are familiar with HTML and CSS code. Most people, including myself, won't need to bother with it to get things to work how we want. Once you're sure you want to block that particular piece of content on the page, just click the Block Element button and you're done. Now, if you go back to the Shields panel for the site, you have a new option at the end of the panel to undo what you just did on the page. So that's it for Shields ad blocking interface. There's still a lot more to Shields that we've yet to see. For that, we'll need to dive into Brave's browser settings. We'll start by going to Settings, Shields. You can also reach this page from the Global Defaults link you saw earlier in the Shields panel. Remember the options you had to choose from earlier in the Shields panel? The default values for those options can be changed here. Don't feel overwhelmed by the number of available settings. You are already familiar with these 6. Notice how the fields match up to the ones in the Shields panel earlier? There may be some differences in the wordings, but they mean the same thing. For example, I like to set upgrade connections to HTTPS to strict. The next time I visit the site, Shields will show only connect with HTTPS as the default option, unless I've previously set it to something different from the previous default value for that site. Since you're already familiar with what all these fields do, there's no need for me to talk about them further. Let's move on to the rest of the settings in this section instead. This setting is straightforward. It controls whether you see the block counter on the Shields icon in the browser's address bar. Remember when you set shoes down in the panel previously? If you report a site that isn't working right, Brave can save your contact info so it can be reused for future reports you intend to submit. Turning this off means you have to enter that information every time you report a problem. Next, we are going to cover contents filtering. Click it and you'll see this page. You can also come here by clicking the filter list link you saw earlier. Filter lists lie at the heart of how Shields act to block ads, trackers, and other unwanted stuff from the sites you visit. And this is the page for advanced users to customize them to suit their particular needs. This area shows the built-in list that comes with the Brave browser. These lists are mostly maintained by third parties and Brave's developers. There's currently no single place to find out what each list does, so you either need to comb through Brave's source code or do a web search. To see all the built-in filter lists available, click the Show Full List button. You may notice some very interesting lists here. Lists that are enabled and currently in effect in Shields are checked, while the rest are not. If you want to enable more lists, beware the warning that enabling many lists may slow down your browser performance. By default, Brave will automatically update the built-in list periodically. If you suspect your lists are not updated properly or your ad blocking doesn't seem to work, just click the Update List button to force an immediate update. If you prefer to use other filter lists that do not come with the built-in ones, you can add your own custom list here. Then click Add. For demonstration purposes, here's what happens when you do so. Filter lists will be automatically updated according to what is defined in their source code. You can also update them manually if you like, or remove them by clicking Unsubscribe. The next two fields will only be editable if you toggle on the developer mode option. Remember the block elements feature we talked about earlier? Here's where all those rules are stored. You can remove existing ones or add new ones manually. Only serious developers who know the consequences of what they are doing should even attempt the scriptless section. We are definitely not going to do that here. So let's move on. The social media blocking section is pretty straightforward. They mainly control whether you want to see content from those social media platforms that are embedded into the sites you visit. Turn them on or off according to your own preference. So that's it for how to set the default values for Shields interface. However, we're not done yet. Because Shields is so tightly integrated with the Brave browser itself, there are many other not so obvious settings that can affect your Shields experience unexpectedly. Let's take a look. Go to Settings, Privacy and Security. We are only interested in these two areas on the page. Click on Delete Browsing Data. It may not seem like it, but this page is actually very important. Brave is pretty unique in that it gives you fine-grained control over when and what kinds of data it automatically deletes. While it's great for convenience, it can really trip you up if you're not aware of it or its effects. I know, because I learned this the hard way. I had problems with Shields either not remembering its settings or never being able to completely erase some of them after I made changes. Ultimately, I realized my problems were caused by which pieces of information I had configured to be auto-deleted after a specific duration. So if you ever face the same problems as me, play with the settings here to clear or reset your browser data to see how they can affect your own situation. Next, we are going to explore where some of those changes you made earlier in the Brave panel were saved to. It's especially useful if you've customized your Shield settings for several sites but forgotten which ones were affected. For the rest of the fields, we'll have to wait for a future Brave release to see if there's an easier way to access them. For now, let's go to Settings, Privacy and Security, Sites and Shield Settings. All the relevant settings pertaining to the Shields panel that we want to talk about are reachable from this page. First off, we're going to look at which sites we had set to Shields down earlier. To do that, click on Shields Status. The boxes are usually empty unless you have set shields down for a site like what I did in the demo earlier. Besides adding new sites manually, you can also perform the following actions for the existing ones. Next, we're going to look at the sites we had chosen to block JavaScript earlier. Let's go back to the previous page. In the content section, click JavaScript. Again, the boxes are usually empty unless you have set block scripts on the site earlier. Here, you can also perform the same actions as you did in the shield status page earlier. We're not done yet though. Your earlier settings has also affected the site's permission in Brave. To see that, go back to the Site and Shield settings page. Then click on View Permissions and Data Stored Across Sites. Scroll or search for the domain where some JavaScript was turned on. Look for the JavaScript field. It should show a non-default value. Remember to check this value as well if you ever change or reset the block scripts button. Finally, we're going to look at which sites were affected by changes you made to the default cookies setting earlier. To do that, let's go back to the Site and Shield settings page. In the content section, click Block Cookies. Unlike the Shield status and JavaScript setting pages you saw earlier, this one shows the sites where you have specifically allowed third-party cookies. Sites that have their shields down, like wikipedia.org in this case, will also automatically appear here. There's no way to edit or remove the entries here unless you have manually added them yourself via the Add button. Instead, you have to go back to your Shields panel to set them to your desired new cookie blocking level. But what about sites where cookies are set to block all cookies instead? For those, go back to the Site and Shield settings page. Expand the Additional Content Settings section, then click on On-Device Site Data, and they will appear here. Again, there's no way to edit or remove these entries here unless you have manually added them yourself via the Add button. Instead, you have to go back to your Shields panel to set them to your desired new cookie blocking level. With that, we've come to the end of today's video. As you have seen, Shields is an incredibly powerful tool for blocking ads and trackers, and it's conveniently built right into the Brave browser itself. With a wide array of customizable settings, it can be a bit overwhelming for users who are unfamiliar with it. Hopefully, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.